Well, hey everyone, what's up? This is another ride, just doing a solo ride. Got some back roads near my house, and man, the first thing that's bugging me, this U-turn. I used to practice U-turns all the time and slow speed stuff. I got to the point I was scraping boards, and I just haven't practiced, and they talk about how riding a motorcycle is, it has diminishing skill set. If you don't practice it, you lose it. And I need to get out there and practice a little bit more because I love that feeling of being able to scrape boards, right? Can you scrape boards? How'd you learn how to do it? Comment below if you can do that. Anyway, I did some videos recently. Did one on the Trinity, one on the deity of Jesus, and this is always going to bring up questions regarding the Council of Nicaea. And, you know, you just can't get one without the other. And I think a lot of it is there's so many misnomers about the Council of Nicaea. And so let's talk about what Nicaea was and what it wasn't. So, let's talk about the biggest maybe misnomer of Council of Nicaea, and that is, this is where modern Christianity was invented, and it basically adopted paganism, is the main belief. I first got confronted by this when I went to see the Da Vinci Code, and I think in 2006 is when it came out. And I'm watching this famous scene in which Gandalf is teaching Forrest Gump how Constantine held this council to formalize Christianity. They debated which gospels they were going to include in the Bible. The mortality of Jesus was talked about, but because before this he was merely held as a human and not divine. I remember watching that movie being like freaked out. Like, wait, I didn't know this. You know, the main core things of Christianity were just decided in 325. Over the years, I've had several of these sorts of things repeated back to me when I had conversations with maybe Muslim friends, with Jehovah's Witnesses, with LDS people, with atheist or agnostic friends. And they seem to repeat the same sort of claims. And so I really think there are some historical corrections that need to be made, because what's presented in the Da Vinci Code are just severe distortions of what actually happened. Regardless if you agree with Christianity or not, we want to make sure that we have a proper view of it. Also, right here, isn't it the worst? You get cars in front of you, you're on a ride. Hey, if you're a non-motorcycle rider and you're watching this video because you just want to hear the theology of it, do all of us riders a favor. If you're on like a 2-lane road and you see us, pull over when you can, just to let us by, because part of it is just kind of scary driving behind cars. You don't know what's going to be kicked up. But man, we're out there, we want the freedom. Just do it for us. Beep, beep. That's how you could show your neighbor love. Love your neighbor as yourself. Pull over and let us go. Anyway, let's talk about some of the corrections that are there popularly when we talk about the Council of Nicaea. First thing, the council had nothing to do with the Trinity or the Bible directly. This is not where they came up with the notion of the Trinity. There was a ton of smaller issues that were discussed. So like, yeah, the date of when to celebrate Easter. Yeah, they talked about that. There was dozens of these minor little things. Should new converts become pastors? What's the role of a deacon? There was a lot of little things that they hashed out, and there was good reason why they did. And we'll talk about that in a bit. But you can read about all of these in church history books. The best one is if you look at the Nicene and Post-Nicene Fathers, Volume 14. That has everything in there. So yeah, there was a lot of things that they needed to be worked out. The biggest concern was the nature of Jesus. What do we do with Jesus? So let's paint the historical situation here. For the first few centuries in the history of Christianity, there was no unified church. And that's because the goal was to preach the gospel, to live faithfully in Christian community, and to resist the pagan world. Christianity was usually seen as illegal. There's a misnomer that it was constant persecution. That's not what happened to Christians. There was ebbs and flows of persecution. But Christians were dispersed through the known world, and in some areas they were persecuted more than others. What really happened is from 303 to 313 AD, this is actually known as the time of the Great Persecution, and it was really gnarly for Christians throughout. So you get this guy named Constantine, historical figure. This is where the Da Vinci Code had some truth, had some distortions. So there was a guy named Emperor Constantine. He was a pagan. And in 312, he was leading his Western army at the Battle of the Milvian Bridge. And the way the story goes, the night before the battle, he saw a vision of a cross in the sky, and he converted to Christianity. And then when he won his battle the next day, he attributed the victory to his newfound faith, right? So by 313, a year later, he grants Christian religious freedom in the empire. And, he eventually says he becomes a Christian. I'm not debating if he was legitimately one or not. But, so this is in 313. By 324, he became really distressed because he finds out that this country, the world, the Roman world, which is now unified under him and unified under Christianity, having all this religious freedom, that Christianity is actually having major doctrinal disputes. And it was primarily the doctrinal disputes surrounding the nature of Jesus. So in 324, Constantine decides to hold a council where now, because it's legal, all the Christian leaders can come and they can talk about this thing and they can figure out what's going on. Why are there certain people teaching something different? So in 325, you have what's called the Council of Nicaea. It's held at Nicaea, then it's modern-day Iznik in Turkey. And I don't think he cares about the theology. I just think he wants unity. He's a politician. Tradition says that it was 318 bishops who came. Historians think it was probably more like 250. But these are Christian leaders who have been leading in the church for years. It's bishops, it's presbyters, it's deacons. And these are the same men who, just a decade earlier, were experiencing persecution. Christianity was not legal until 313. This is 325. These are men who, you got to imagine, are coming to this council and they're missing limbs. They have scars. They have gouged out eyes. They have limps because for years, especially from 303 to 313, they were experiencing significant persecution and not abandoning their faith, not giving into paganism. Okay, so these are the people who are primarily at this council. These are former victims of persecution. The council, it ends up lasting a few months. It wasn't just a weekend thing. And it was an all-expense-paid trip. Constantine says, hey, come here and let's work this stuff out. Constantine presides over the council, but he's not directing it. Like I said, I don't think he cares as much about the theology. And the main issue they're working through, they work through a lot of little things, but the main thing is they say, is the nature of the Son the same or different from the Father? Does the Son have the same or different nature from the Father? Now, one of the guys who's kind of causing an issue, his name is Arius. He's a presbyter, we could call it a priest from Alexandria, Egypt, and his belief was that Christ was created by God out of nothing, and he's an exalted creature. And Christ was to be the instrument through which all subsequent creation would occur. But there was a time when Jesus was not, is what Arius would say. So I think he had a strong commitment to want to preserve biblical monotheism, and that's something, we should commend that. He wanted to, stay true to monotheism. I just think he goes too far. The man who's really challenging Arius is a man named Athanasius. He is also from Alexandria, Egypt. And he was really the champion and the spokesperson for what we would see as the Orthodox view of the Son. And Athanasius would argue that Christ is of the same substance as the Father. He is eternal, not created. So as they got together, they worked in this group of hundreds of pastors and church leaders. So Arius put forth what we would call a creed, what he believed. And his creed, in speaking of Jesus, it contained the term heterousios. So ousios in Greek, it means substance. Hetero, just like heterosexual, right? A different thing. So Arius says that Christ had a different substance as the Father. Well, this is immediately shot down by the group. Athanasius puts together his creed and says, no, Christ is homoousios, of the same substance of the Father. And this creed eventually becomes accepted by the council. Before this, there was what we would call the Compromise Party, who put together a creed that says, well, maybe he's homoiousios. a similar or like substance. Athanasius and others don't like this because this might give Arians the ability to creep in on this, and they want no part of it. So at the end of the day, the winning creed is that of homoousios. Jesus, the Son, is of the same substance as the Father in terms of his nature. Remember we talked in a previous episode about the Trinity. There's one being of God in three persons. What Athanasius would argue is the Son has the same substance as the Father. They're still one God, but Jesus is fully God, and the Father is fully God. They didn't work out all the Trinitarian language until later, but they're trying to work out, well, who is the Son? And so, ultimately, at the end of the day, I mean, there's more that we could go into on this. Like I said, there's many things that the council did talk about and did not talk about. They never discussed what books of the gospel should be in there. Like, that wasn't a thing. Da Vinci Code gets that totally wrong. But it's primarily saying, what is the nature of the Son? Is he of the same substance or a different substance? It's law of excluded middle. You could only be one or the other, right? So they came to a vote. All but two people affirmed that Jesus is of the same substance as the Father. Was the Trinity and modern pagan Christianity invented at the Council of Nicaea? No. This was just the first legal chance that Christian leaders had to gather together and solidify Christian beliefs and to say, no, we don't believe this sort of thing. And remember, Christianity was illegal. Most of these pastors who were in here had experienced years of persecution before this. They're not going to be easily swayed by things now. Right? They're going to hold to their convictions. And so there was an overwhelming belief to say, no, let's continue to affirm Jesus as being the same substance as the Father. So at the end of the day, we could say, bad Gandalf, you're a bad boy. You did not get this one right. Repent of your sin. But that's just Da Vinci Code belief it's bad theology. So anyway, there's so much more. I would encourage you to read church history books and read what happened at Nicaea. It's fascinating. It's interesting. It's not as clean cut as we want it to be in terms of maybe from an evangelical standpoint or an Orthodox Christianity standpoint. We want things to be so, imposed in terms of long-standing formulas on how we articulate the Trinity. No, Christians had to work this stuff out because they were battling some stuff early on. Anyway, we could still talk about some of these ideas later. Great comments have been happening in the YouTube videos. It gives me ideas on future videos to make. If you are liking these videos, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. You'll be notified when new videos come out. I try to release those weekly. I'm also involved in a ministry called Determined Truth Ministries. You can find us on the web at determinedtruth.com. We have a weekly podcast. We go through books of the Bible. We have blogs. We help mentor pastors in India for free. We have weekly online studies if you're interested in hooking up with one of those. We're a nonprofit 501c3, and we function entirely from financial support from people like you. So maybe consider partnering with us there and helping us out on some of the things that we're doing. You can check out my personal website at theologyclass.org. But in the meantime, hey man, ride safely, think about something meaningful, and go love your neighbor. See you guys.